Hey guys, welcome back to the 40k Cafe, and thank you Finn for the request. Ghazghkull Thraka, otherwise known as Margaret Thatcher, is the prophet of WAAGH. Most people know him by his long-standing rivalry with Commissar Yarrick, and as well as being one of the biggest threats or key players in the 40k lore. But where did he come from, and how exactly did he rise to power? Well, Ghazghkull's history, long before he became the prophet of the WAAGH, can be traced all the way back to the Second War for Armageddon. At this point in time, he was just a trooper in the Goth clan. Here in 932 M41, Ghazghkull would take part in a raid upon a Space Marine command sector. At the beginning of attacking the base, Ghazghkull would be hit by a stray bolter shell straight in the head. This would tear off a large chunk of his skull as well as the brain matter that lied within. Despite his injuries though, Ghazghkull would get back up to his feet, which was a sign of toughness and grit, which as we all know, most orcs admire above all else. He was recovered by his fellow orcs, but then immediately sold off for some teeth and a chopper to a pain boy. This pain boy was known as Mad Doc Ghazghkull, who would pay any individuals that would bring him, willing or not, patience. Ghazghkull would then perform an operation, and to the surprise of both individuals, Ghazghkull would awaken. It is said that the chunk of his skull and brain that was missing was replaced with chunks of metal, wires, and squig. On top of which, when he awakened, Ghazghkull claimed that he could see more clearly than ever before. He claimed to have had a vision to lead all of the orcs on the greatest WAAGH of all time. And on top of which, that he was in direct contact with the gods of the orcs, Gork and Mork. He truly believed that he was chosen for this divine purpose. After his recovery in normal orc fashion, Ghazghkull would go on to challenge the warlord of the Death Skulls. The warlord Dregmek would open fire on Ghazghkull, and whether it was a sign from Gork or Mork, Ghazghkull would emerge unscathed. Ghazghkull would then beat Dregmek into a pulp and emerge victorious, claiming that this was only the beginning. After claiming leadership, the rest of the orcs would gaze upon Ghazghkull and believe that he grew larger before their very eyes. He would then move on to unite the rest of the planet Urk under one banner. After uniting the planet Urk under one banner, a Space Hulk would emerge from the warp. Ghazghkull set his eyes upon it, as well as the rest of the planet, in order to claim it for their own. Regardless of the fact that this Space Hulk was occupied by demonic entities, Ghazghkull would not only drive them out, go on to claim the Space Hulk and begin an exodus outside of the realm of Urk. While traveling through the warp and scrapping with even more demons, Ghazghkull's WAAGH would still multiply and thrive. With a WAAGH that emerged from the warp stronger than ever, Ghazghkull would find himself yet again at the edge of Armageddon. Emerging right at the edge of Armageddon, Ghazghkull had the brilliant idea to just drop the Space Hulk on top of the planet. Up until this point, Ghazghkull hadn't made a name for himself outside of Urk, but soon, with the events that would transpire, the whole Imperium would know of him. Whether it be sheer luck or thanks to Ghazghkull's cunning tactics, the orcs would take over the plains and soon move to the hive cities. Ghazghkull's cunning tactics would allow him to claim Armageddon Prime, and with the rebolstered troops from all the scrap that he would acquire here, he would then set his eyes on Armageddon Secundus. But this is where Ghazghkull's forces would come to a screeching halt. The remaining defenders were led by none other than Commissar Yarrick. This is where their long-standing rivalry would form. Constantly, the forces would trade victory or defeat, even to the point where Ghazghkull would attain a sort of respect for the Commissar. Ghazghkull's WAAGH would be driven back from Armageddon, and much of the Imperium actually believed that he was initially dead. Commissar Yarrick would actually disagree and go against his commanders in pursuit of the Orc warlord. At the Battle of Golgatha, this is where Ghazghkull would really make his name known amongst the other Orc factions. Here, he would not only defeat Commissar Yarrick, but actually capture him. He would use the capturing of Commissar Yarrick as a step stool, because Yarrick had made a name for himself amongst the Orcs as a legend. At the end of it all though, Ghazghkull would actually let Yarrick go, claiming that good scraps are hard to find. Somewhat nearly 60 years after the Second War for Armageddon, Ghazghkull would not forget his defeat. He would then ally himself with the Bad Moon's warlord and reset his eyes for Armageddon again. This would then commence the Third War for Armageddon. And seeing the time that I have right now, I'm just going to make this part 1, and I'll be posting a part 2 soon. After all, would you expect anything less than outstanding history from the Prophet of the WAAGH? So for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you, Finn, again for the request, and stay tuned for part 2. Oh, and before I forget, as always, remember to follow for more.